Welcome to Beyond the Spire, a podcast of the Save Our Sacred Sons project here in Preston at the Catholic Shrine of St. Walburg, supported by the National Lottery. In each episode, we go beyond what you see from the street. We explore the story and the sound of Gregorian Chant, the Church's own voice, so that this treasure of faith and culture is not just preserved, but lived and loved again. I am Canon Bunans. Whether you're a musician, a member of a parish choir, or simply someone curious about the Catholic faith heritage, you came to the right place. Let's begin. In today's episode, we'll talk about the decline of Gregorian Chant and the Renaissance. We are delighted to guest Canon Christopher Lee again. To welcome, Canon.
Hello, Canon. It's a pleasure to be there again.
Thank you very much for coming. And for the first time, we have Canon Monjean here joining us from New Brighton.
Indeed.
Hello,
I'm
Canon.
delighted to be here. Wonderful.
Could you please introduce yourself a bit for our listeners?
Well, I'm Canon Amaury Monjean. Obviously, I'm French. I'm a member of the Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest, and I've been serving in our Church of St. Peter and Paul and St. Philomena in New Brighton on the Wirral for nearly 14 years, and I have been involved, says the less, at the foundation of the mission at St. Walburg's under the care of the then Bishop Michael Campbell, and I'm more than happy to support this series of podcasts on the Gregorian Chant, which is obviously one of the main concern and the heart of the Institute as we live the life of canons. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a question. We are talking about Gregorian Chant, but there are some very nice music, liturgical music, sacred music outside of the Gregorian Chant. So how Gregorian Chant, is it related to sacred music? Is it better to sing Gregorian Chant or have sacred music?
Well, I would probably say that Gregorian Chant is in the scope of the sacred music, but it's different in the sense that the Gregorian Chant is normative. So when the Church has developed and founded and developed the Gregorian Chant, it came with the liturgical development and the normation of the liturgy, and we will probably have a little look at this in the next episode. But certainly, the normative touch of the liturgy, as we can see it in the Pontifical Mass, goes with the Gregorian Chant. So Gregorian Chant is not just sacred; it's normative for the Church.
And it's something also mentioned in the Constitution of the Second Council of the Vatican, absolutely on the Constitution about Holy Liturgy, and it says very clearly that the Gregorian Chant is still the normative prayer song of the Church.
Yes, so it's a norm in a sense that from both sides, for the chant, for the execution of the sacred chant in church, like the office or the Mass, or the prayers in general, but also from outside, it is normative for the conduction of the liturgy. So it gives a kind of a frame to the liturgy. So it's not just a norm for execution of the chant, but it's also a norm for the liturgical prayer.
So that's very interesting, because as we hear that, we can say that the sacred compositions outside of the Gregorian Chant, so modern music may, in a sense, has to keep the same spirit than Gregorian Chant as a norma, and that's the whole point of Renaissance.
Yes.
So when the music became composed and written and transmitted, everything was completely new, and the Church had to give a structure for the composer to maybe avoid
some abuses in a way.
Yeah.
No, I understand what you mean. Losing the sacred aspect of the music.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because Gregorian chant is used as a norm, not just for this particular kind of chant, but for every sacred song the church wants to use in her liturgy. But at one point, at this Renaissance movement, well, mindset has changed. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, the liturgy of the church is a living liturgy, and through the centuries, the liturgy is touched by the life of the society. During Renaissance, we have a rupture with the medieval time, because medieval time was a society centered before and around the question of the worship and God, when Renaissance is marked with a new interest for paganism, antiquity, and especially humanism. So man will be now the center of the attention of the society. And in the Gregorian chant, you will have a lot of eruption, even of pagan ideas into the chant. We still have only one in a sequence of the Requiem Mass when we mentioned Teste David cum Sibylla, with the Sibyl, because all the others were purged by St. Pius V. But you can see that this eruption of the humanism of the Renaissance was quite important on the liturgy.
100% agree with what Canon Christoffel said. It's the surge of the individualism in the Renaissance period, which is most striking, and the Gregorian chant had been being the opposite, because in the technique of the Gregorian chant, it's a kind of a medication or the antidote to individualism, because there's only one voice and no breath. There's no mark of breathing in the Gregorian chant, as opposed to modern music, as opposed to the Renaissance music, as a sign of eternity. It never stops. You're not supposed to breathe. Well, you do breathe anyway, but
not in the same time.
Not at the same time. You have to be careful.
Yeah.
And this is kind of that sense of common good, God-centered, sacred, but also it represents a kind of philosophy and a rupture. And also with the Protestant input is very important at that instance, because it's not only a faith revolution, but also the Gregorian chant revolution. For instance, a small example, the Gregorian chant is absent from the Protestant liturgies, and the modality has been dropped completely, except one.
Yes, but if we look at the whole compositions that we have from that point, Renaissance point, humanism, and this composition centered on the audience more than God,
Yes.
we can see that they could also drive the souls to God.
Yes. Yes, it's interesting that we make this kind of opposition on confrontation between the Renaissance music and Gregorian chant music. I think the Renaissance has lost the sense of freedom and gratuity, because we sing for God, and Renaissance sings for men.
Interesting.
But in the meantime, Gregorian chant sings for God, but also sings for Christ, who is God. Don't get it wrong. But it seems to the incarnation of Christ as well. So the Gregorian chant is an incarnation as well as the eternal Son was made flesh. The Gregorian chant has to speak to the flesh, if I may say, so to the senses. So it's not totally in confrontation with the Renaissance music. So it sort of pulled the strings of the human soul as well as the modern music. But this is the deep meaning of modality.
Can we say that Gregorian chant speaks to the soul, and modern music from Renaissance speaks to the feelings.
Yeah, it could lead that people to the faith, of course. I'm not
Mm.
saying that the music from Bach or whatever kind of even organ music can lead to the faith, to an act of faith and find out God, but it doesn't embrace the same scope of humanity. So it's part of the humanity is touched by the modern music, but the Gregorian Chant embraced the whole thing. So I wouldn't say there's a confrontation, but there's a lack of something in the modern music. So they've dropped something.
Also, quickly after the Reformation, we will lose a bit of transcendence in the sacred music because of the Reformation and its influence. It will start to be sung in the national languages and not in Latin anymore. Latin was helping to keep this transcendence, having an exclusive language for God, but because of the German, especially German influence, and later English as well. But it will certainly bring something totally new in the heart of the liturgy.
So it's a kind of a self-looking music. We are speaking with our own words instead of the church words.
Yes, can I just mention Johann Sebastian Bach, who is a wonderful master. He was a Lutheran. I believe personally his music is very Catholic because it's quite liturgical, in fact.
Yes.
But you can see, exactly as Canon said, Bach is it's certainly a prayer, but it does touch first the heart of the faithful. And there, for example, in a passion like St. Matthew, you are part of this dialogue between the three choirs, and it's taking you. It's a full, if I may say, spectacle. It's not a theater, but it's like an oratorio at the end.
Yes. Yeah, in this kind of music, I would say that in what we call the music from the Renaissance music, also particularly in Bach, but it could be others like Buxtehude or Pachelbel. It touches your, it sort of triggers your feelings and emotions to your faith, but the Gregorian Chant triggers your faith and goes into your feeling. So the movement of the incarnation is more visible as a descending rather than the modern music and this and melodies try to pull you from the feelings to the faith. So it's the other movement.
And maybe to sum up, we have the difference between the liturgical purpose and the just emotional purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So here, Gregorian Chant serves the liturgical purpose, which is obviously a faith purpose. And even if it can touch your heart, it's not designed for that, firstly. And that's, I believe, what was the wrong thing with the new compositions before Pope Pius V came in the Council of Trent.
Yes.
And asked Palestrina to reorder or to give the church something that is also liturgical, that
Absolutely.
we can understand with the not only the feelings but also the ear, understand the words, not melting all together. And so have you something to add about that?
Well, I've got something to say about. I shouldn't be too presumptuous, but the notion of silence. I know you've touched that in one of your episodes, but this is also one of the difference between these two kinds of musics. Between the chant and the music is that the music, in the modern music, a silence is a pause to be able to breathe and to be able to continue your own performance. In Gregorian chant, when the chant stops, so the liturgy has something to say, so it's more sacred. So it's not a pause, it's a sacred gap, and we are, as we know, the most solemn and important moments of the liturgical action are silent. So in a way, the Gregorian chant, the silences of the Gregorian chant, they sort of open the window of solemnity and the window of the liturgical action, like as we do for the ordination of priests or the consecration, etc. So I would say the music intends to lead us to the grandeur, but the Gregorian chant lead us to another world, which
Yes,
is not
it's
just
true.
not just grand, but transcendent.
Mm.
So this is the difference between grandeur and transcendence.
And you see that in the modern music, we also need to add instrument, to add multiple voices, to add little technical aspects that are not required in Gregorian chant, which is completely simple, even it's kind of difficult to master. But so yes, instruments too. The organ takes a huge place over the years. And yes, we talked about Bach, but Buxtehude had a lot of compositions, and he's a master in this kind of music.
Yeah, because he knows Gregorian chant. He's always there at the back.
So yes, that's interesting because finally Gregorian chant has turned into an inspiration.
Of course.
I would like to add, Canon, if you permit me, as an experience, I would say a pastoral experience here in St. Warburg, sometime for funerals, when we sing the Requiem Mass in Gregorian, and where some people in attendance who are not used to our liturgy or who are very, they don't know the Catholic faith at all, but after the ceremony, they are coming to us and saying, this music brought a lot of peace. And we were, of course, we are devastated by the loss of someone, but this music actually helps us also in our emotions to deal with the mourning and the grief of losing someone, for example, in this particular case.
Yeah. And this sort of pastoral aspect of things is you can see it's a source of many conversions. And in the young generation, it's extraordinary because they perceive that it's not just another kind of music or chant, and also we can sort of explain, or it's self-explanatory, that the notion of participation comes naturally there. So they don't want to sing with you because they know this is not the place. In a more modern music, they would try to sing or join with you.
And I would add something interesting, yes, because modern music usually needs very capable singers.
Yeah. Skilled,
and well, when you try to sing modern music, if you're not skilled, it could be very dangerous to try to interpretate it. But for Gregorian chant, it doesn't require extreme skills. You just need to know how it works, and it works differently from modern music. But it's not, you're not supposed to be a solo singer and very vocal, trained, singer. You're a man of faith. You are blending your voice into the schola. And if you're skilled, yes, you could do some steps forward, and maybe be in the cantors and sing the verses, and so yes, the participation here has different meaning. So we are unified to the schola if we can't just know how to sing the Gregorian chant.
Well, you unite yourself to the prayer of the church through the people and the congregation, as Canon rightly mentioned, vibrate to the Gregorian chant, to the modality, to the meaning. Even if you're not skilled, you can still vibrate. You participate in that. You're not supposed to play or sing anything. So
and there are answers too. You have Dominus vobiscum, you sing et cum spiritu tuo.
Yes, I know. You don't need to sing. That's my point. You don't need to sing.
Absolutely.
You need to absorb so that you can be yourself absorbed into someone else's mind, that is the church, and the Lord himself. That's the point. That's the point.
Yes, everything is structured.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, okay, I will sing the celebrant part or the
No.
scholar part. It's not like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I talked to my to one a new member of our choir, a well-known professional soloist, and we talked about Gregorian Chant not a few weeks ago, and she said, I fell in love with something so different from my job, but I literally fell in love and I want to learn. And she said something very interesting. She said, you need to know the technique of the Gregorian chant before you sing it.
Mm.
Yeah,
She was very adamant to that point. And then she said, because she's heard our sisters and she was amazed. The first time at New Brighton, she was amazed. And she said, but here you've got, your voice needs to be up under constant control in Gregorian chant. You can't let it go.
no, absolutely
As in
not.
the modern music. It's most interesting to hear that from a soloist who performs at the Philharmonic, for instance. She's done that a few times. She's mezzo soprano.
Yes.
But she said we had to let it go in modern music. But in Gregorian chant, it's not because it's subtle that it's not cared and under control. She said, you keep your voices under constant control. And I said, yes. And she said, in particular, in the way you sing, the final notes.
For sure.
She said it. I didn't say anything because she attended the office and she said, this is what I've noticed. And I said, this is not just because you want just to turn the volume a little bit down, but she says it's because you are in control. So it's not yourself, it's about something else.
Yes, it's a prayer. So it's also humble and very careful.
Yes.
You're not displaying your own skills, even if you are very capable.
Well, usually in life, it's not a good idea anyway.
Well, if you sing as a soloist,
I understand. You know what you mean.
You can't mask yourself.
Not just in chant, but in general. It's
Yes.
good to remain at the background.
So yes, and Gregorian Chant gives us this opportunity to be at our place, a humble place.
I would say it's a chant of conversion, whether the Renaissance and modern music is a chant of emotion.
Yes. Would you add something, Canon, to that?
I think you cover the essential canon, so I won't add anything now.
If you let me go, I would talk for 2 hours.
Yes,
but we will have you on the next episode. I'm already looking forward to that.
Okay.
But as a conclusion, I would say that polyphony is also something we haven't talked about because we talked about modern music. But in fact, Gregorian Chant is monophony, and the compositions following the Renaissance and Humanism development had some richness in opposition of the simplicity of Gregorian Chant, maybe. In Gregorian Chant, if you train, even if you're not a good singer, you can still have your part in it.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Absolutely.
That's fine. But also, when you say the Gregorian chant is a monophony, I agree, and somehow I would probably moderate that expression a little, if you don't mind, because when you add the organ, it's no longer a monophony. Both melt in the one voice emission at the end.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. And this is why you would probably have this debate with your episode on
I hope so, yes.
organ accompaniment,
Mm-hmm.
because this is core. And this is all the discussion throughout from the reform of the Gregorian chant from Solem, etc. That should be the long-standing discussion. What is the level of of polyphony we can add into the organ accompaniment. In, as you say, in polyphony, modern polyphony, the violin or the cello doesn't support the singers.
No, it's a dialogue or a contest, maybe.
Yeah. It's an implementation. So they add up and form an harmony, which is very nice, but they add up, but they never melt. The organ and the voice melt. That's why you need to choose the right stops. You need to read the right chord you're going to play, more or less. And at the end, and this is sort of, at the end, Gregorian chant ends into a monophony at the hemistiche, and at the end of each verse, your voice melts into the voice of the organ. So there's only one voice emission. That's what I'm saying. This is not the goal of polyphony.
This is very interesting. Yes, I hope we will be able to welcome Christian Spence in our future episode for organ accompaniment. But we still have one more episode to talk about the reform of Solem, and that's a huge part.
Thank you, Canon.
There's more work.
Thank you very much.